So here I am, still sitting in the middle of my apartment, trying to wrap my head around everything that's gone down over the last 2 days. Honestly, I don't even know where to start. I guess the most logical place is the beginning. I first met Lucas about 8 months ago at this international street food festival happening downtown. Haley, my roommate, and I were wandering around, sampling food from different stands, when we stumbled upon his booth. He was selling these mouth-watering pastries from his home country. I won't say which one, just to keep things kind of private, but it's somewhere in South America. He had this warm, magnetic accent, and to be real with you, I thought he was insanely cute right off the bat. We struck up a conversation while I waited for my food, and when I finally got my order, he threw in an extra pastry for free. Wrapped up in the napkin was his number, like something straight out of a cheesy rom-com. I couldn't believe it. We started texting back and forth for a few days, and before long, we were officially dating. In the beginning, things felt almost perfect. He was sweet and thoughtful, constantly complimenting me and always wanting to hang out. He'd share stories about his culture and how life was different where he grew up. His English was really good, still had an accent, though, and honestly, I found it really charming. After about a month of dating, he started crashing at my place more often. I live in this small one-bedroom apartment that I'm actually really proud of. I've been fully supporting myself since I was 20. Sure, I work in office administration, and it's not exactly my dream gig, but it pays the bills. I never pretended to be something I'm not. I was always open with Lucas about where I'm at in life. I told him from the jump, I've got goals, I've got plans, and I'm not staying stuck in this job forever. I didn't come from a family where things were handed to me, you know? So anyway, a couple of months into dating, it slowly turned into him living with me full-time. It happened so gradually, I barely even noticed. One day, I just looked around and realized all his stuff was here, and he hadn't been going back to his place at all. And honestly, at the time, I was happy about it. I genuinely liked him, and I thought we were building something meaningful. Now, looking back, I realized the first red flag was right in front of me, and yeah, I totally ignored it, lol. He never once offered to help with rent or utilities. When I finally brought it up, somewhere around the 3-month mark, he gave me this explanation about how he didn't have stable income yet, and how hard it was to find work with his visa situation. And I mean, I got it. Immigration stuff is no joke, and I wanted to be understanding and supportive. But that's when I started picking up on these little comments he'd make. They didn't seem like a big deal at first. Just little things like, you swear too much. Or, women back home don't talk like that. Then there was, you dress very American, and your laugh is so loud. At the time, I brushed it off. Figured it was just cultural differences, right? But the remarks kept coming, and they got more pointed. He'd say things like, you wouldn't last a day in my country. Or, women there know when it's time to be quiet. Sometimes, he'd give me these weird looks if I spoke up while we were eating dinner with his friends. Meanwhile, money-wise, nothing was improving. He picked up the occasional delivery gig, but most of the time he was camped out at my desk, playing games on my laptop while I was out working a full-time job. I'd get home after a 9-hour day, exhausted, and there he'd be, asking what was for dinner. And somehow, I'd just go and cook. Looking back, I honestly don't know how I let it get that unbalanced. About a week ago, one night, I finally said something. I told him, I'm starting to feel worn down carrying all the expenses on my own. And you guys, his reaction? Absolutely unhinged. He flipped it back on me, got all defensive, and accused me of not trusting him. Said something like, I thought we were building a life together, and here you are, counting pennies like some shopkeeper. And just like that, I was the villain in the story. I felt awful afterward, genuinely guilty for even bringing it up. He didn't speak to me for 2 days. And the craziest part? I ended up being the one to apologize. Seriously, what was I thinking? Wild. Then came this past weekend. Lucas told me his parents were visiting for a few days and that he wanted them to come over for dinner. I was actually kind of excited, but then he hit me with a list of rules. Please don't joke too much. Don't be rude. Be respectful. He said his mom was very traditional. So I spent the entire day deep cleaning the apartment, cooking 3 full dishes, including one from his country that took me forever to figure out, and just stressing out, trying to make everything perfect. By the time 7 p.m. rolled around and they showed up, I was completely wiped, but still trying to put on a good face. His parents were polite. That's really the only word I can think of. They smiled, nodded, said hello, but something about the energy felt off from the second they stepped in. Almost immediately, they started speaking to Lucas in their native language. And it wasn't just a quick greeting. They kept going in their language for about 80% of the night. Even while sitting at my table, eating the meal I had cooked for hours, they barely switched to English. I tried to stay upbeat, smiling, nodding like a fool, trying to follow along without understanding a word. Lucas would occasionally translate something for me, but it was always vague stuff. Like, oh, they're talking about our cousin's baby, or just some family business. Halfway through dinner, I realized I forgot to pick up cream and lemons for the dessert I had planned. So I told Lucas I'd make a quick run to the corner store. They all nodded, didn't even pause the conversation, so I grabbed my keys and left. I was only gone about 15 minutes, but when I came back, I could tell something had shifted. It felt like they had changed the subject fast, like I had walked into the tail end of a conversation I wasn't supposed to hear. The rest of the evening felt just as weird. I kept trying too hard. They kept speaking in their language, and Lucas just seemed different when they were around. They finally left around 11 p.m., and I was so emotionally and physically drained I just crawled into bed without saying much. The next morning, I was in the kitchen making coffee when something clicked in my brain. About a year and a half ago, someone broke into my apartment and stole my laptop and some jewelry. After that happened, I installed 2 small security cameras. One faces the front door from the living room, and the other is in the kitchen. Nothing fancy, just regular shelf cameras I bought off Amazon. I don't check them often anymore, they're just kind of there for peace of mind. But standing there sipping my coffee, I suddenly remembered they were all in my home while I was gone. And it hit me. I could actually go back and listen to what they were saying. At first, it felt a little weird. Like, was this crossing a line? But then I reminded myself, 1, this is my apartment. 2, the cameras aren't hidden. And 3, they were having a whole conversation without me while I was out getting ingredients for dessert. So I grabbed my phone and opened the security app. I found the footage from around 8:30 p.m., right when I'd left for the store. At first, it was just more of the same. Them talking in their language, sitting at my table, eating my food in my home. But around 2 minutes after I stepped out, I could tell things shifted. Even without understanding the language, their tone and body language changed. The mood in the room? Totally different. I could feel it through the screen. His mom started getting more animated, waving her hands in the direction of the kitchen, the same kitchen I'd just spent all day sweating over. His dad nodded along and chuckled now and then. And Lucas? He just sat there grinning and agreeing with whatever they were saying. I had no clue what any of it meant, but something felt off. Still, I couldn't do anything with the footage if I didn't know what they were saying. Then it hit me. There's this transcription and translation service I've used a couple of times for work. So I clipped the video, uploaded it, and waited. An hour later, the translated transcript came through. And God, I wish I'd never opened it. I wish I had just let it sit in the unknown. His mom had said, and I quote, "She's not very pretty, but at least she keeps things clean for you." Then she laughed and added, "Well, she knows her place, at least." His dad chimed in with, "She's like a free housekeeper." Smart choice, son. And Lucas? The man I had cooked for, cleaned up after, and supported for months on end? He just laughed along with them. Then he said, "She's useful. The place is always clean, food's always ready." He kept going. American girls are so easy to manipulate. You just make them feel guilty for asking anything, and they'll hand over everything. And believe me, it got worse. Much worse. But I can't even bring myself to type out the rest. I still feel sick thinking about it. They ridiculed everything, my looks, my job, my apartment, even the food I'd spent hours preparing for them. And they did it all while sitting at my table in my home. What hit the hardest wasn't even the words themselves. It was the fact that Lucas never once stood up for me. Not a single time did he say, "Hey, don't talk about her like that." Or, "I actually care about her." Nope. Instead, he joined right in. Laughed like it was all just one big joke. I sat there, just staring at my phone, completely frozen. I don't know how long I was like that, but it felt like forever. My mind started running back through every little thing, every time he criticized me, all those harmless jabs that chipped away at me over time. The way he'd compare me to women from his culture, always implying I was somehow lesser. It all made sense now. He never respected me. To him, I wasn't a partner. I was just convenient. Right now, as I sit here in my kitchen, the same kitchen where his parents mocked me, he's still asleep in my bed. He has no idea I know. I'm trying to figure out what to do next. I know I need to end it. I know I need to get him out of my apartment for good. But a part of me wants to look him straight in the eyes and tell him I heard every word. I want to see his face when he realizes I understood everything. So yeah, that's where I'm at. A woman who thought she was in a relationship, only to realize she was basically someone's unpaid maid for 8 months. I've never felt so foolish. Update. He just woke up and asked what I was doing. I told him I was checking emails. He kissed the top of my head and went to take a shower. While the water's still running, I think I'm going to start packing up his stuff. I can't bear the idea of him spending another night in this place. First update. First off, I want to thank every single person who commented on my last post. I didn't expect so much support, but I read every message, curled up on the bathroom floor, hiding like a kid. You guys got me through it. So much has gone down in the last 36 hours. Right now, I'm crashing on my friend Haley's couch, typing this at 4 a.m. because sleep is a joke and my mind won't shut off. When I left off yesterday, Lucas was in the shower, and I had just found out what he and his parents really thought of me. I was sitting there in the kitchen, feeling this weird kind of quiet rage, the kind where you're not yelling, just hollow inside. The second I heard the shower shut off, I put down my phone and walked straight into the bedroom. I pulled out 2 black trash bags from under the sink and started tossing his stuff in. I wasn't careful or organized. I was just grabbing clothes, shoes, his damned gaming headset, everything, and stuffing it into the bags. Honestly, there wasn't even much. He came into my life with next to nothing. I found this little box I kept with photos of us, pictures from that food festival, a beach day last summer, random memories. I tore them in half and dumped them in the bag with the rest. I was halfway through clearing out his drawer when he walked in, just wearing a towel. He froze, staring at the chaos, completely stunned. He asked me what I was doing, sounding confused, like something was wrong. There was this nervous edge to his voice I'd never heard before. When I didn't answer right away, he reached for my arm. I flinched and backed away so fast that I knocked over the lamp on my nightstand. It didn't break, but the lampshade got bent. That's when I told him. I said, I know exactly what you and your parents said about me while I was at the store. I told him I had it all recorded, that the camera picked it up, and that I had it translated. I said, you called me your personal housekeeper. I know everything. The look on his face? First pure shock. Then denial kicked in. He started babbling about how I must have misunderstood the translation, that I didn't get the cultural humor, that it was just a joke. But when he saw I wasn't buying it, he flipped the switch. Suddenly he was furious, yelling at me for spying on him, accusing me of violating his privacy, even though the cameras were right there on the wall and had been there long before I ever met him. And I just kept calmly packing his things while he shouted. I didn't say much. I didn't yell. That made him even more unhinged. He grabbed my wrist, hard, and yanked me away from the bags. Told me I was crazy. That I was overreacting. That this was exactly why women from his country were better. They don't act hysterical over nothing, he said. That's when I snapped. I pulled my arm back so fast his nails scratched my skin. Then I shoved him away and told him to get the hell out of my apartment. I said he had 20 minutes to get dressed, grab his crap, and go, or I'd call the cops. He called me a crazy bitch. Said I'd be nothing without him. And then, I swear, he actually said, you're throwing away the best thing that ever happened to you. The best thing? A man who degraded me to his parents, lived off me for months, and treated me like I was disposable? I laughed. I looked him dead in the eye and said, you've been living off me. Everything you've enjoyed here? That was mine. My home. My food. My Netflix. My life. You're not a boyfriend, Lucas. You're a parasite. That definitely struck a nerve. His whole face turned bright red, and for a second, I genuinely thought he might take a swing at me. Instead, he snatched up the bags I'd packed for him, stormed into the bathroom, and came out a few minutes later fully dressed, still fuming. As he made his way to the door, he kept tossing out these last-ditch jabs, like he had to have the final word. You'll regret this, he said. You'll be calling me, crying in a few days, begging me to come back. Then came, no one else would ever put up with you. I didn't say a word, I just opened the door wider and pointed for him to get out. Right before he walked out, he knocked over the little table by the door, sending my keys and a stack of mail scattering across the floor. Then he slammed the door so hard, it rattled the frame. My neighbor from across the hall actually peeked out to see if everything was okay. Once he was gone, I just sat there on the living room floor for what felt like forever. The red marks on my wrist where he grabbed me were starting to turn into bruises, and that's when it finally sank in just how far I'd let things spiral. Just how long I'd let someone treat me like this. I broke down for a while. Not from sadness, exactly. It was more this weird cocktail of relief and anger bubbling up all at once. After I got it out, I switched into problem-solving mode. I texted Haley a quick summary of everything that had happened. She immediately offered to come over, but I told her I needed a bit of time to myself first. I went around the apartment collecting anything Lucas might have left behind. A stray charger, a few books, a jacket he left in the closet. I tossed them all into a separate bag and set it by the door. Then I called a locksmith. Cost me $285 since it was a last-minute Sunday emergency call, but by 8 p.m., I had brand new locks on my door. And honestly, worth every cent. The texts started coming in around 8 p.m. The first one was short, "You're making a big mistake." I didn't respond. Then, I left my charger and a few things. I need to come get them. Followed by, "Are you seriously ignoring me? After everything I've done for you?" I almost hurled my phone at the wall. By 10 p.m., the messages had taken a different tone. "I'm sorry if you misunderstood what we were saying. It's a cultural thing. You wouldn't get it. Then, can we please just talk about this? You're overreacting. That's when Haley showed up. She brought wine and takeout, and we camped out in my living room. I showed her the translated transcript, and she was absolutely furious. I had to actually calm her down. She was ready to go find him herself and throw hands. She stayed until around midnight, helping me delete every trace of him from my phone and social media. We went through Instagram, removed tags, unliked pictures, scrubbed everything. This morning, Monday, I woke up to 17 missed calls and around 30 new texts from Lucas. It was a full spectrum from rage, "You'll regret this," to desperation, "I'm sorry, please talk to me," to guilt-tripping, "I have nowhere to go." You know my situation. I blocked his number. Then I remembered. Instagram. Blocked. WhatsApp. Blocked. Facebook. Blocked. Even LinkedIn, just in case. I called in sick to work. My wrists still hurt, and honestly, I didn't have the emotional energy to put on a brave face around coworkers. My boss was kind about it, told me to take the day and rest. Around noon, there was a knock on my door. I checked the peephole, and yep, Lucas. I didn't answer. He kept knocking, calling my name through the door. I sat completely still on the couch, watching him through the peephole like I was the one stalking him. After about 10 minutes, he finally left. I texted Haley again, and she insisted I come stay with her for a few days just to be on the safe side. So that's where I am now, crashing on her couch. And honestly, all I can do is keep replaying everything in my head. Every red flag I brushed off. How he never paid for anything. How he nitpicked the way I talked, the way I dressed, how I laughed too loud. The way he made me feel like I was wrong just for asking for basic fairness. How I was never included when he went out with friends. How he belittled my job like it wasn't good enough. It's so clear now. So painfully obvious. But I missed it all. Maybe I didn't want to see it. Maybe I was too caught up in the fantasy of dating someone who seemed so charming and different. And get this, his cousin, the one he's actually close with, messaged me on Instagram this afternoon. Apparently, Lucas told his whole family that I kicked him out because I was mentally unstable and jealous of his culture. His cousin didn't buy it. She wanted the truth. So I sent her the translated transcript. She was horrified. Said she was sorry for the way her family acted. At least one decent human in the bunch. So yeah, here I am. Sleeping on my friend's couch, completely cut off from the guy I spent 8 months of my life with. Trying to figure out what comes next. I've never had a breakup unravel like this before. Part of me is worried he'll keep trying to contact me, or worse, show up at my job. He knows where I work. Another part of me just feels exhausted. Not because I miss him, but because I feel so stupid for not seeing this all sooner. Haley thinks I should file a police report about the wrist thing, just to have it documented in case things go south. I'm not sure if that's going too far, but maybe she's right. Maybe it's better to be safe than sorry. Actually, has anyone else gone through something like this? How long did it take for your ex to finally give up and stop reaching out? Should I be on high alert about him showing up to my office? Am I blowing this out of proportion? Anyway, that's the latest. Sorry it's a mess, my brain's all over the place trying to make sense of it. Second update. First off, a huge thank you to everyone who reached out, gave advice, or just showed support. You were right about all of it. Especially the part about keeping records and being cautious. After spending 3 nights on Haley's couch, I was finally starting to feel a bit more grounded. The bruises on my wrist had faded into this gross yellowish color, but at least they weren't sore anymore. I hadn't heard a peep from Lucas since I blocked him everywhere, and for the first time in days, I started to believe the worst might actually be behind me. I even returned to work on Wednesday. My coworkers were amazing, super chill about me needing a couple days off. No pressure, just support. Yesterday morning, Saturday, I woke up early and decided it was time to go back home. Haley offered to come with me just to make sure everything was okay, but I told her I'd be alright. On the way there, I stopped for coffee and caught myself checking over my shoulder like I was in some low-budget spy thriller. Total paranoia mode. But when I walked through my front door, everything was exactly the way I'd left it. I spent the whole morning deep cleaning, changing out sheets, scrubbing the bathroom, rearranging furniture. Basically, just reclaiming my space. Erasing every trace of him. Reclaiming my home. Reclaiming myself. I even lit some sage my sister gave me last Christmas. Yeah, I know, total cliche, but I needed something to shift the energy. And honestly, it helped. Around noon, I figured it was time to check in with my parents. We usually talk on weekends, and I hadn't said anything to them about the breakup yet. They live about 40 minutes outside the city, in the same house I grew up in. At first, I thought I'd just give them a call, but then I figured maybe seeing them in person might be better. I sent my mom a quick text asking if I could come by for dinner, and she replied with, "Yes, we need to talk." Just that. No emojis. No exclamation points. which immediately set off alarm bells in my head because my mom. She's the reigning queen of texts with hearts and smiley faces. A flat, serious we need to talk isn't her at all. I tried calling her, but it rang through. No answer. I told myself she was probably just busy prepping dinner or something, but it didn't stop my nerves from buzzing. I got to their place around 4 p.m., and the moment I walked in, I felt it. Something was definitely off. My mom was sitting stiffly at the kitchen table, not even getting up to hug me like she always does. My dad stood at the counter, facing away, slowly stirring his coffee. The tension in the room hit me like a wall. For a second, I actually considered turning around and leaving. I asked what was going on, and my mom just looked at me with this weird expression like she wasn't sure how to start. Then she hit me with, "Are you doing okay?" Like, mentally. I blinked at her, completely thrown. I was still trying to figure out what she meant when she dropped the bomb. Lucas had gone to see them. Yeah, you read that right. He actually went to my parents' house. Showed up out of the blue Friday morning, apparently looking sharp and polite. He apologized for just dropping in, but said he was worried about me. He told them I'd been acting irrational and paranoid. Said I'd been secretly recording him, that I'd kicked him out in a fit of rage, and get this, that I'd physically attacked him. He even pointed to a scratch on his face, one I absolutely did not give him, and implied it happened during our so-called fight. He spun this elaborate story about me being an unstable girlfriend who lashed out when he was only trying to help. My mom was watching me closely as she told me all this, like she was trying to read my reaction. I could tell she didn't entirely buy his story, but she was rattled enough to not dismiss it out of hand either. I sat down slowly, feeling like the floor had just opened up beneath me. I took a breath and tried to stay calm while I explained what really happened. The dinner with his parents. The security cameras that had been in place long before I even met him. What I'd heard on the recording. The things they said about me. How he grabbed my wrist when I confronted him. My mom still looked uneasy, not because she didn't believe me, but because the whole thing just sounded so absurd and messy. She kept asking if I was sure I hadn't misunderstood the translation, if maybe there was some cultural nuance I was missing. That's when I pulled out my phone. I still had everything, the video clip, the screenshots of the translated transcript. I handed it to her without saying a word and just watched her face as she scrolled. By the time she finished reading, her expression had completely changed. She looked furious. Not at me, at him. My dad, who'd been silent until that point, walked over and asked to see the phone too. He's usually pretty mellow, the kind of guy who doesn't raise his voice. But as he read through the transcript, I watched the color in his face change. When he got to the part where Lucas's dad called me a free housekeeper and Lucas laughed, my dad actually swore under his breath. And let me tell you, he never swears. The whole vibe in the kitchen flipped in an instant. My mom stood up, walked over, and hugged me tight. She apologized for even letting a sliver of doubt creep in. "I should have known better than to believe that manipulative little weasel," she said, word for word. It made me laugh even through everything. My dad, on the other hand, went quiet in a way that made me more nervous than if he'd started yelling. He just asked, "What time does Lucas usually get off work? Where does he do his deliveries?" I told him, without really thinking too hard about it. We tried to settle into dinner after that, but my dad kept glancing at the clock and barely touched his food. Around 7 p.m., he stood up, grabbed his keys, and said he needed to step out for a bit. My mom asked where he was headed, but he just said, "I'll be back soon," and left. My mom and I locked eyes and we both knew. We knew exactly where he was going. I immediately tried calling him, but no answer. My heart was racing, picturing him confronting Lucas and things getting ugly fast. My mom was clearly worried too, though she kept insisting, "He's not stupid. He wouldn't do anything that'll get him in trouble." We sat there in silence for nearly 2 hours, calling his phone over and over. No answer. Just more tension building by the minute. Finally, around 10:30, we heard the car pull into the driveway. My dad walked in looking completely calm, like he'd just stepped out for a loaf of bread. My mom and I both jumped up, practically demanding to know where the hell he'd been. He sat down, cool as ever, and told us he'd gone to find Lucas at his delivery job. He waited for him to finish his shift, and when Lucas came outside, he walked right up to him. My dad said he kept his composure, which I kind of believe and kind of don't, knowing how mad he was. But according to him, he looked Lucas in the eye and said he knew everything. That he'd seen the video, read the translation, and knew about the wrist grabbing. He told him to stay far away from me and from our family. That he wasn't welcome anymore. Lucas apparently tried to defend himself at first, saying it was all a misunderstanding. But when my dad started repeating back the exact words from the recording, verbatim, Lucas apparently went pale. Like, ghost-level pale. Then my dad dropped the hammer. He said, "You sat at our table. You ate our food. And then you turned around and called my daughter a maid. Said she was only good for cleaning up after you. Then he told him, if I ever hear you talk about her like that again, or find out you're spreading more lies, there'll be consequences. He didn't explain what those consequences would be. And honestly, I don't want to know. My dad said Lucas didn't say a word after that. Just stood there, frozen, while he walked away. Part of me really wishes I could have seen his face in that moment. After my dad finished telling us everything, I felt this flood of emotions hit me all at once. There was relief, knowing someone had finally stood up for me. A bit of embarrassment that my parents had to get involved in my personal mess, especially at 25. And a lingering fear about how Lucas might react next. I ended up crashing at my parents' place that night, not because I planned to, but because it was late and I was completely emotionally wiped out. The next morning, over breakfast, my mom brought up something I hadn't really thought through yet, filing for a restraining order. She pointed out how Lucas's behavior kept escalating, first showing up at my apartment, then cornering my parents behind my back. She wasn't wrong. I've been seriously considering it since, but the process sounds complicated, and I'm honestly not sure if what's happened so far would be enough for a judge to approve it. If anyone reading this has gone through that process, what kind of evidence did you need? Also, quick side update, Lucas's cousin, the same one who messaged me before, reached out again last night. Apparently, after my dad confronted him, Lucas called his mom, and she is furious. But not at me or my dad, she's mad at him for dragging the family name through the mud. His cousin also mentioned Lucas's been couch surfing ever since I kicked him out, bouncing from one friend's place to another. And surprise, surprise, most of them are already getting fed up with him. He even lost his food delivery job because he kept showing up late. Basically, he's running out of places to go. I'm heading back to my apartment today. Haley offered to stay with me for a few nights if I felt nervous being there alone, but I think I'll be okay. Just to be safe, I already let my building manager know what's going on, in case Lucas tries anything again. Oh, and totally random, but I've started therapy. My first session was actually yesterday morning, before I went to my parents. The therapist seems great. She's already helping me unpack how I landed in this mess to begin with. Turns out I've got some work to do when it comes to spotting red flags and setting boundaries early on. Who knew? I'll update again if anything major happens. But hopefully, this is the beginning of the end of the whole Lucas disaster. Last update. Hey Reddit. It's been almost 2 weeks since I last posted. I really wasn't planning on writing anything else. I honestly thought, and hoped, the Lucas situation was behind me for good. But of course, I was wrong. And yesterday? Yesterday crossed a line I still can't fully wrap my head around. After my dad confronted Lucas, things went pretty quiet. 10 whole days of nothing. I moved back home, started rebuilding my routine, and for the first time in a while, I felt like myself again. I even treated myself to a little shopping spree, picked up new throw pillows and a couple of plants. It was silly, but reclaiming my space felt powerful, like I was shaking off whatever energy he'd left behind. My therapist had suggested I start journaling. At first I rolled my eyes, it sounded cheesy, but once I started doing it, I got it. There's something about writing things down that makes them feel less overwhelming. I've had 2 more sessions since then, and we've been digging into why I let so many red flags slide for so long. Spoiler alert, turns out I've got some unresolved self-worth issues. El Mayo. Classic. Work's been a good distraction. My coworkers don't know the full story, just that I went through a rough breakup, but they've been really supportive. Anyway, yesterday started out like any normal Tuesday. I did my usual morning routine, skincare, podcast, grabbed coffee from the shop around the corner, and headed into the office. The morning flew by. Meetings, emails, more meetings. I didn't even touch my phone until lunchtime. That's when I saw them, 3 missed calls from an unknown number, and 1 voicemail. I stepped into the break room to listen to it, and the second I heard his voice, my stomach dropped. It was Lucas. He didn't sound right. His speech was slurred, and he kept flipping between English and his native language. From what I could piece together, he was saying he needed to talk to me, that his life was falling apart, and that I owed him a conversation. I deleted the voicemail immediately and blocked the number. Then I texted Haley to let her know what happened. She told me I should warn the office security, just in case. At first I thought she was overreacting, but something in my gut told me to listen. So I stopped by the front desk. Our building has 2 security guards, Walter, this older guy who's been around forever, and Nina, a younger woman who just started a few months back. I caught them right during their shift change and explained the situation briefly, that my ex might try to show up and that I didn't want to see or speak to him. They were great about it. Said they'd keep an eye out and let me know if anything happened. That alone gave me a bit of peace of mind. Still, I couldn't really shake the feeling. I kept glancing at the elevator every 5 minutes and checking the time like I was waiting for something bad to happen. By 4 p.m., I had almost convinced myself I was being dramatic. I mean, yeah, the voicemail was weird, but it didn't mean he'd actually show up, right? Then, around 5:30, I was in a glass-walled conference room near the front of the office, sitting in on a team meeting. We were in the middle of discussing an upcoming project when I noticed someone moving around near reception. I glanced over, and sure enough, it was him. I quickly told my team I had to step out, grabbed my phone, and texted Walter, who was in the break room, to get to the front desk ASAP. I ducked behind one of the structural columns, heart pounding, trying to figure out what to do. That's when I heard his voice getting louder. He was trying to push past Nina, insisting he just needed 5 minutes to talk to me. Said I was being childish for ignoring him. Before I could move, Walter came striding in, and thank God for Walter. He's a big guy, former military, and he didn't waste time. He positioned himself right in front of Lucas, blocking him completely. I couldn't hear every word, but I could see Walter's body language, arms wide, pointing toward the door. He was done playing games. For a minute, it looked like Lucas might back off. He took a couple of steps back, and his tone shifted, but not by much. And then, because the universe has a messed up sense of timing, Jordan walked by. Jordan is a coworker, super chill guy. He saw me behind the column and asked, "Hey, everything okay?" That's when it happened. Lucas spotted me, and he saw I was standing there with another guy. Something snapped in him. His face changed. It got dark. He suddenly lunged forward, trying to shove past Walter, charging straight toward us. Walter was on him in seconds, grabbing his arm to stop him. But Lucas was like a completely different person, nothing like the charming guy I'd met at that street food festival. He was yelling. Loud. He shouted that I'd ruined his life. That I'd turned everyone against him. That I was already moving on with that guy, meaning Jordan, who looked like he'd just stepped into the world's worst telenovela. People were coming out of meeting rooms, standing up from desks, just watching. And me? I couldn't move. I was frozen in place, equal parts humiliated and terrified. Jordan stepped slightly in front of me, kind of instinctively, like he was trying to shield me. It was a kind gesture, but it only seemed to fuel Lucas's rage even more. He was still pushing, trying to get past Walter, and then the words started flying. He called me a manipulative bitch. Said I'd tricked him, that I'd secretly recorded everything just to destroy his life. He accused me of attacking him, of throwing him out onto the street like some stray dog. And then, just like that, he flipped the script. His voice cracked, and the anger turned to desperation. He started crying, real tears, full-on breakdown, pleading with me to talk to him. Said he loved me, said he had nowhere to go, that he needed me, that I was all he had left. Meanwhile, Nina had called for backup. 2 more security guards showed up just in time, because the next thing I knew, Lucas broke free from Walter and lunged again, straight at me. Jordan instinctively stepped in with his arm out to block him, and Lucas took a swing. Missed him by an inch, but it was close enough to send the entire front office into panic mode. The 2 guards grabbed him, one on each side, and started dragging him toward the elevator. He didn't go quietly. He kept yelling, slinging insults 1 minute and begging the next. As they pulled him out of the building, he turned to look at me one last time and shouted, "You'll regret this. This isn't over." And that was the moment my boss appeared beside me. She didn't say much, just calmly told me I should take the rest of the day off. She walked with me to my desk, stayed there while I collected my stuff, and then had Walter escort me to my car just in case. I felt like I was underwater the whole time. Like I was watching it all from outside my body. None of it felt real. I called Haley from the parking garage, but I was shaking so badly I could barely hold my phone. She came straight over to my apartment, takeout in hand, and didn't leave my side all night. We sat on the couch while I told her everything. She let me vent, cry, spiral, whatever I needed. And even though she offered to take the couch, I couldn't sleep anyway, so I let her have my bed while I stared at the ceiling from the living room. This morning, I woke up to a message from my boss telling me to take another day off. She also said HR wanted to meet tomorrow to discuss adding more security around the office. Jordan also checked in, which was really kind of him, especially considering my unhinged ex nearly punched him in the face yesterday. That was the final push I needed. I picked up the phone and called the police. I filed a report, something I should have done back when Lucas grabbed my wrist, but I was too overwhelmed at the time. The officer who took my statement was understanding. She said that while showing up and making a scene isn't technically a crime, his behavior definitely raised red flags. She helped me begin the process of filing for a restraining order. And I'm following through with it today. Oh, and I got another message from Lucas's cousin. Apparently, after the meltdown at my office, he spiraled. Went on some kind of bender and posted a flood of cryptic, angry Instagram stories about betrayal, revenge, and other unhinged stuff. He blocked me, but mutual friends sent me screenshots. His cousin said his parents finally stepped in. They've booked him a one-way flight back to his home country. The ticket is for tomorrow, and according to her, they've made it crystal clear either he gets on that plane or they're cutting him off for good. No more help. No more bailouts. No more couches to crash on. Nothing. She thinks he'll actually go this time. He's out of options, out of friends, and out of money. As for me, I've triple-checked every door and window in my place. Haley is staying with me again tonight, just in case, but I'm finally starting to feel something close to safe. I'm still processing everything. Still a little jittery. Still hyper-aware of every sound in the hallway. But I also feel more certain than ever that ending this was the right call. If his cousin confirms he actually gets on that flight tomorrow, I think I'll finally be able to take a real breath. Like a full one. First time in weeks. To everyone who's followed along, thank you. Your advice, your encouragement, your empathy, it helped keep me grounded when I started second-guessing myself. If anything significant happens, if the restraining order goes through, or if I get confirmation that he's really gone, I'll post one last update. But fingers crossed, this is the end of the Lucas chapter in my life.